Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, along with Lorenzo Panariti. Panariti. You changed it? I've said it right 10 out of 10 times. Now I've got the mic in front of me. Lorenzo Panariti.
There you go.
Got to sing it. Young 27-year-old coach from Italy. He's living in Denmark. Great to have him here. I'd like to talk to you about many, many things, but just what we do with our guests. Lorenzo, is just start your journey in tennis, your beginning days in tennis. How'd you get connected to tennis?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was, I think it's, like most players of my generation, it's not as nice as it used to be, like the stories in which, the parents are hanging out in the club and you just start banging balls at the wall. It was more like, my dad was like a recreational player and, he liked tennis and he wanted me to start playing. So I started as far as I can remember, it was just kind of like group clinics as I started at 5 years of age. I remember I was the youngest one in the group. And let's say kind of hit and giggle in a sense, it's like with the hand pads, with the wooden, the wooden front and just trying to make contact with the ball. And I was playing a lot of sports. Like I played a lot of different. I was swimming quite a bit. I was riding horses. I was skiing in the winter sometimes. So I tried a bunch of different sports. I tried football for 2 weeks. Never been
2 weeks.
I've never been that good at football, but yeah. And then I stick to tennis. I have to say, like growing up as a kid, I've never been like that. Like a gifted athlete from the start, like not really. I still remember switching around, like places. The first time a physical trainer, like I had a session with a physical trainer, and after the session was over, like the lady went to my dad, and I remember clearly, like she said that your son moves like a fat penguin. So I was like, and I was chubby. Like I've never been like skinny or athletic, so it has been quite a bit of work. And started playing more and more, like through school. The only thing I kept doing until I was maybe 13, 14, I think it was swimming, at least once or twice a week. And then I started playing a lot of tennis, lots of tournaments, lots of I would say self-inflicted pressure in a sense, like when you try to compete, like with what you have, but switching several places as far as I remember moving from one club to another when I was maybe 11, 12, and then switching again 2 years afterwards, and then again to another place. So I didn't receive, like, let's say, consistent coaching through like the developmental stages, and that I think had an impact in a sense. I had one coach that was following me when I was, let's say, very young, let's say between 7 and 10 maybe, and then we stopped with that. But yeah, it was I think it was quite alright, and my parents, like my dad being an amateur player, not having gone through the pathway of competitive tennis, that makes it harder for a parent, and then they just want the best for they wanted the best for me, and of course, like, they wanted me to be successful, but if it's hard to navigate when when you don't know what the right path is.
What part of Italy did you grow up in?
I grew up in the north, near to Milan, Monza actually, where there is the Formula 1 racing track. Most of the time I was training like in Milano area, so it was maybe half an hour driving. Still it's not that far, but it was I trained for a period near Monza. But
The very northern part of Italy, German is spoken, correct?
The very, very top, very, very north. Like for example, where Yannick Sinner is from, they do speak mostly German, but it's not that north. Also, I think is it's a bit different culturally, in Italy with the northern culture and the southern culture. and my family is all from the southern part of Italy, which is a little bit like the United States in a sense. You know, it's like the south is it's a little warmer. It's more about like the slow cooking kitchen. You know, it's like there is more influence of the mom and the grandma. You know, and it's this kind of more family-like atmosphere. So that's in a sense like the culture that I grew up in, even though I was in the north. So it's you know, you do have some fond memories of like a larger family. You know, both my parents had you know, my mom has like 5 brothers and sisters, my dad 7. So it was a big family when I was growing up.
And you have siblings?
No, that's so I was the spoiled kid.
And what about school tennis? In Italy, that's not the case. There's no high school tennis, correct?
No. And it has been a struggle, like going through high school. And I mean, I've always been quite good in school. So, you know, I was also pushing myself, and, you know, my parents were also like stressing on academics. You know, it was not just tennis. So also like choosing the high school, you have different options. Like you can kind of choose an easier high school that would allow you to get some more time, some more free time to play, to train, just to have free time and hang out. But still, you know, I decided, no, actually it was my dad deciding, but he decided like to put me in this kind of tougher high school, which looking back, I'm happy I did, because it was really formative. Like, but through the process, I hated it. Like it was really tough. Like also people that were not doing sports, they were struggling. So it was not enough sleeping, and a lot of effort, like you know, on the court and doing physical training, trying to train every day, playing tournaments in the weekend, during the week. I mean, and also you get to the point in which you have to hide it, like in the school, that you're leaving for going to a tournament, because the professors, if they find out that you're prioritizing tennis over school, then instead of being how do you say, like instead of trying to help out, like they actually go harder at you, and this kind of that's kind of that doesn't help, you know, in a sense, if you're really trying to excel in sports. So that's a big difference.
You came to the U.S. to play college tennis. You tell us about that. How was your English when you came over here?
Oof, that was not good enough. It was still a big trauma. Like, I mean, I could barely have a conversation in English, and I remember landing from the plane. First time, to take the flight by myself. I arrived in this little airport in Des Moines, Iowa, and there was this guy coming to pick me up, like somebody hired from the university, with this very strong country accent, and he was talking to me at the phone. It was so hard, and somehow we managed to find each other after like I was traveling for like 19 hours or something. We get in this pickup truck, and he starts talking like a machine gun, you know, from start to when we arrived, and he didn't stop for 1 second. So so there was quite an experience. And then, you know, as soon as you get there and everybody starts talking to you, it feels like rockets, you know, like passing by. So I really remember like feeling my brain like, you know, really cranking around the language. But after 2 weeks, you get used to it, you know.
You had to take the TOEFL test, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What did you study?
In college, business administration and management. I actually ended up with a double major in business, like management and accounting. And then, I finished my master's in international business in Denmark.
And where'd you do that?
The master's, that was just in the town where I'm living.
That's how you got to Denmark then.
Mm-hmm.
With college tennis, tell us about that experience.
Definitely not the dream experience that you see in the movies, like like with the big colleges, big parties. It's I ended up in 2 smaller colleges. I played the first one, it was a Graceland University in Iowa, and the town is called Lamoni. It's on the border between Iowa and Missouri. So really just cornfield all day, like nothing else. But I mean, it was nice. It was a small school, maybe 1,500 students. Yeah, something like that. And I mean, and I ended up transferring. I mean, it was a good experience overall. It was a bit of a, it was a little turbulent. Like with the coaches, I had some funny experiences with the coaching over there. I got recruited by this coach. That as soon as I arrived there, he moved, like because he had been offered like another position in another university.
Yeah.
So as soon as I arrived there, he lives like that week. So I talked to him once, and then this new guy comes in, and he's never seen me play, and the other guy just left a list, with the players, and he's like, okay, that's how the lineup is gonna be, and like he put me on number 2 on the lineup, like almost for no reason, because there were guys that were actually playing futures, like in that team they were like really good. Like there was a guy that had ATP points in doubles, before. So I really wasn't deserving the number 2 spot in the lineup. And then as soon as you get in there, then you have the teammates that kind of look at you and it's like, who are you? It's like to get there. So it was a little turbulent to start.
NAIA?
NAIA.
And mostly foreign players?
Yeah, all foreign players. There was only one American player, but he wasn't playing in the lineup. And he was playing doubles.
And where did you transfer? Why did you transfer?
I transferred to Bluefield State in West Virginia, in Bluefield. And I transferred actually because they cut the program in Iowa. So it was, it turned out to be, a good coincidence in a sense. But after 1 year, we started hearing rumors that they were going to, I think it was like the football team, the American football team wasn't doing so well, and they needed to find a new tennis coach because we have been going like for 1 year with this guy that, he was a really nice guy, but he was a priest in the church, and he was like former player, from back in the day, but he was just trying to help us out, So they didn't want to invest the money like to continue the program. And
you're just there 1 year?
Yeah, and then they actually cut the program like the semester after. So as soon as I moved, like they played one more semester, and then they cut the program.
And what was the second college experience like? It's always good to have more experiences.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it was different. It was a smaller college that was actually a state college. So the previous one was like a private college. So it was also more taxing for my. Yeah, of course, I was on a scholarship, but I was not on a full scholarship. So still, my family had to cover. Like I was working on the first, during my first year in college. To try to cover some of the costs. I learned how to string. I was stringing rackets. I was cleaning toilets. I was, what was I doing? Swiping floors. Like all the stuff that they asked me to do, like to put some hours in. That's what I was doing the first year. Then when I transferred, the good thing is like I got really good grades during the first year. Also because it kind of felt like a bit like a joke. Like coming from like a really tough high school in Italy. The freshman year in college, I didn't need to study. It was just living on what I've already done. So I got like I think straight A's, and then that helped with the how do you call it?
Transferring.
With the transferring with the academic scholarship. So I got partially tennis scholarship and academic scholarship. So that really helped like to lower the costs in the other college.
And that school also NAIA?
No, there was NCAA Division 2.
Division 2.
And but both teams, they were actually competitive. With the second team, we beat like on first division, like during a practice match, we beat a Division 1 college team, and also with the first team, they had been to nationals every season for the previous maybe 10 seasons. So it was really strong teams. I was barely playing in the lineup, in the second team as well. The coach. He was a really good recruiter. We never got to like each other in a sense. He never really liked me. So there was a reciprocal.
You're so likable. Why is that?
I don't know. That's something that I want to ask him one day. But so I kind of ended up playing very bottom of the lineup. Sometimes he never got me to not even trying to play doubles. He just put me in there when somebody was whatever sick or couldn't make it, and I think I did my job. I did okay, but so we had our quarrels, and with the coach, and I mean, again, I did what I could. Like I kept up the tennis, I kept practicing, and I was doing okay in school. I mean, I ended up as salutatorian actually, so it was and again, I was not trying my best, like in a sense with academics. It was just easier in a sense. And,
wow, salutatorian. I have a sister who I remember when she was salutatorian. I was much younger, 11 years younger, and I was just asked, "What does that mean?" And one of the brothers said, "I mean, she's number 2."
Yeah, exactly.
She wasn't the valedictorian. She wasn't number 1.
You got 1B.
A big family. You know, you can't cut a break. So you were done in 4 years.
I was actually done in 3 years and a half. I like practically I was done in 3 years because like of one of the quarrels with the coach, because it wasn't making me play in the team, and I kind of threatened him. Like I took all the classes that I could on one semester, and then I wanted to leave, so that I knew that he was going to have 5 players, so he was going to need me for the last semester, and I took all the classes and I got done, and then I kind of forced him like to say, okay, what now? So I mean that was good. So I mean that's why I got the double major, because then I had an extra semester like to actually stay there and say, well, I can actually take some extra classes and take it easy.
So your high school preparation was rigorous. How many hours did you take?
During college.
That when you said you doubled up and you took more classes.
Yeah. How many do you? I actually
15 is the norm. 5.
15 is the norm. I remember like that semester I took like 24 or something like that.
Wow.
But it was, and in the meantime, I mean, there was some weird things going on. It's like I was helping out another teammate that he was giving me rides like to the bus station because I needed to go back and forth and visit this ex-girlfriend of mine. So I kind of took a couple of classes for him as well.
Oh wow.
So there was, but again, it was not Harvard. It was not Stanford. It was just still, still something. I mean, but it's. I think I learned a lot more like during the masters.
Well, you became fluent in English.
Yeah, that's.
How did you decide when and where to go for your masters?
It was actually a little random. It was this ex-girlfriend of mine. Like we were staying together when I was staying in the U.S. and she's
American girl
from Mexico actually, but she was working in the States. And then we decided like to move to Denmark because actually in Odense, where I'm based right now, there is this academy of fine arts. Like she's studying like painting and sculpture, and she looked it up and she found out. Look, if I can get in over here, that's the only place in Europe in which they actually offer a full scholarship for non-European students. So she did the application for her place, and I did my application for my master's education, kind of in a sense because I was like, I'm coming there, so I might as well do something, and then at the end she didn't got accepted in her education, but I did, and so she had to go back to Mexico after 3 months, and then it didn't work out, but in a good sense I've been stuck in Denmark, but that's like the longest story.
So you'd have an MBA then, is that right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, and but no way I'm gonna take like no. It's not actually. It's not an MBA. It's a master's degree. The MBA is a little different. Also in Europe, it's you actually have to pay for that. It's in your like for the masters, for example, like you didn't have to pay. That's the funny thing, In the States, instead for getting the bachelor, it was actually, it was really expensive. Then you have the scholarships like to cut it out, but that's something that Denmark offers for the students as well, the possibility of studying if you're European. If you get accepted, like you don't have to pay fees. You get you can get the bachelor, you can get the masters, and it's unbelievable. That's the only country in the world in which if you work like a part-time job, if you work 10 to 12 hours a week, they actually support you. They give you money. They give you like 500, 600 euros or dollars, which is almost the same, just extra, just so you get paid. Like, I actually managed to save some money, like, while studying for the masters.
But Denmark, they're not on the euro, correct?
No, they are on the Danish krone.
Krone, yeah. Mm-hmm. With music, you also studied music?
Yeah, there was a parenthesis after I got done with my masters, and So I got done with my masters, and in the meantime, like all the 3 years and a half, like 4 years that I've been in Denmark, I've always been working part time in the club where I'm at right now, and so yeah, I finished the master, and the situation was kind of stalling with the tennis. Like now it changed a bit, but I was kind of stuck in a sense. Like I was working. Let's say I had let's say a boss, and I was like underneath, and this is like this many hours that you can do, and this is like this much, of what you want to do that you can do. So I was kind of stuck in this shell, and I didn't really want to get out of tennis, but I also didn't want to get an office job because I don't like sitting down, and I don't like a screen. I don't like sitting in front of computers, and that's what you do with my business education. And like I started actually in high school playing saxophone, like as a hobby, as a passion. And my uncle actually just showed up for Christmas with a saxophone. He is an amateur saxophone player, and he brought some jazz CDs at home, and he was like, "Here is a saxophone. Here is some CDs." He gave me like a disc with like a lesson that you can try to take, like, and so I studied like 1 year as a self-instructed saxophone player. Then I started taking some lessons, and it was something that really took my mind off. I was really stressed out with the school, and tennis wasn't going the way I wanted it to go. And then that was something that, in a sense, made me feel, still, okay, I can do something, I can be okay at it, and we don't have the pressure of you need to be this good by this then. Growing up, you kind of have the illusion of when you set the wrong goals and you set okay, I'm 14 right now, and when I'm 18, I need to be, whatever, I need to be top 200 in the world, or I need to be almost a professional player. I want to play the Olympics when I'm 21, and then you realize when you're 16 that it's like, it's not going to happen because you just don't have the level, and people keep passing you by, and then when you realize that you're stuck in that sense, that was something that kept me breathing, because at the end it's like I realize it right now that I went back like to play for fun, and it really gets me breathing. It's like a breathing meditation. So the fact of having like this air instrument, especially if you want to be good, you need to practice like long tones, so I could sit and for 15 minutes just practice like low notes and just keep blowing, just and that really helps you like breathe out and clear your mind. And it's it really I realize that I get the best ideas and the best I get in the best mood after I play, because it's probably just breathing, and but I kept playing all through college. I was going back and forth, to visit this ex-girlfriend of mine. She was working in Washington D.C., so I was going back and forth to visit her. I was, I took some lessons over there with some good teachers. I was kind of exploring the scene, like going to some jam sessions and just playing with people. And I mean, I just loved it. I just did it for fun, but serious fun.
And you take your saxophone everywhere you go. You're here with 3 13-year-old players from Denmark, but you brought your saxophone with you.
Yeah, I mean, I realized it after I spent like less than a week with one of the students, like in Spain, and I didn't bring it. And I realized after 5 days that I didn't play. First of all, you get back, and it's like you're so rusty, and that's so frustrating. The fact that if you lose a little bit of strength in your in your lips, in your muscles over there, it takes so long like to build it up again. But also just the fact that I really get like my tolerance level, I realize it gets so low. It's like it's as if I don't sleep. It's crazy. I realized it after this weekend, actually, when we spent like all day at the tournament for 2 days in a row, and I didn't have time to practice. On Sunday evening, I was like borderline. Like, I needed to breathe like, really heavy. And then on Monday I practiced, and I'm good again. So it's really like a good meditation exercise. So it's.
Oh, that's interesting. We'll have to talk about Torben Ulrich, the Great Dane. He was really known for so many different things, but meditating was one of with tennis teaching, tennis coaching, and we use an expression here in the States, a means to an end. So when you first started coaching part-time, did you know that that was something that you want to pursue as a livelihood, do it full-time?
I mean, I wouldn't say so. Like, in a sense, it's something that I started doing, and then I realized that I was good at it. You know, in a sense, I was good at communicating with the kids, but it was like a work in progress in a sense. You know, and it's like if you go through stages when you're like 19, 20, 21, 22, you are in that phase in which you really don't know what you're looking for in a sense, also for the long term, and. But you know, then when you find something, like for example, I remember like the way I got the job that I have right now in Denmark. I worked like before that for 3 months, like in the JTCC in College Park.
Okay.
And so that's where I got like, first of all, like before that I worked a summer in a summer camp, and I got like some instruction on how to coach. Then those 3 months were also like really really good as far as I got some directions on how to do it. Like how to coach, how to connect with players. And then when I arrived in Denmark, having that kind of small luggage of experience, you know, then they just put me on the court like for like a week of tryout. And you know, like a couple of parents from outside, they actually went to talk to the head coach, and they said, I mean, these guys, I wasn't speaking the language. I was just trying to make connection like with the hands and with the eyes and with the voice, and you know, and they actually said this guy is pretty good, you know, at communicating with the kids. So they, you know, they hired me like for a period, and then it just kept going. But I mean, it's just that the more I do it, the more I realize like, and that's something also I want to ask you. I want to talk about like, you know, you realize that you can have an impact, you know, and it's like sometimes working with the education that I got in college is like. Of course you can have an impact, but it's, you know, if you work as a consultant for a company that's making $1 billion and is like, you know, it's not the same as changing a kid's life in a sense, you know, because when that's what we're doing in a sense, you know, and that's larger than, you know, making sure that the company is making that extra billion, you know, it's a different kind of satisfaction, and. So that kind of, you know, turned me around, and I had in the back of my mind, like when we talk about the music, you know, that's something that I was really enjoying doing, and you know, for a second I thought, you know, I could do it as a career because it was really fun, and then I started like I applied for the conservatory, and it's actually really like it's a good program, it's a good school there in Odense, and like the level is really top national level, like a lot of good teachers, a lot of good musicians over there. And as I got in there with you know, I was like bubbling passion, you know, I was really loving it, and I started feeling that the people over there, like the teachers, but especially the students, you know, they didn't have that kind of like that fire, you know, they were playing and it was becoming their job, you know. It was different. So it was not more something that was making them happy, but it was something that they had to do because they had to make a living somehow. And I felt like that kind of vibe coming at me after, you know, 1 year in which, you know, if I pull out my saxophone and I feel like, you know, oh, now I need to practice this, you know, and it's like I don't want to feel that way, like, because before it was the thing that I was looking forward to. So if then that gets taken away from me, then, you know, you take away my, like, kind of my anchor, like something to keep me sane.
Are you still studying at the conservatory?
No, not anymore. No. I resigned actually officially from this January, and that's when I started like working full-time.
Tell us about JTCC. That's a famous place here in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was again, it was very random. I mean, I was because I had this former girlfriend like that was working in Washington DC, and I just looked up places. I had no clue about who was coaching there, like that they had players. I just sent an email, and I said, "Look, I'm playing college over here. I coached last summer in this camp in New Hampshire. Maybe you even know the coach of the camp in New Hampshire, Coach Porter, Dave Porter. Do you know him?
Yeah, I know the name, Dave Porter. Yeah, he's older, right?
From Hawaii. I hope he's still okay. I heard he was having trouble.
Oh yeah, okay. Dave Porter for sure. No, he's at BYU.
BYU, exactly.
Okay. I have to just stop and think. I don't really know him personally, although I met him many times. I listened to him speak. Actually, one of our students is playing for him right now. But he was in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Where was that in New Hampshire?
In Camp Wall Whitman.
Okay, I've heard of that too.
And it was.
Yeah, I went to prep school in New Hampshire. It's a beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, and that was quite an experience. It was. I mean, again, that was the first time in which I got on the court, and working for somebody, and he actually he printed out lesson plans, and trained us for a week before the camp started.
Oh, that's good. That doesn't happen very often.
That's and I felt very privileged with that, and also with the training that we got in JTCC before the camp started, because usually you just get thrown in the court, and then that's kind of a trauma that I see happening on a daily basis, almost like in the clubs in Denmark,
And that was a boarding camp.
There was a boarding camp. It was
Years ago, there was an article in Tennis Magazine. If you can survive a boarding camp, you can survive a tennis career.
It was insane. I remember getting in there, and we were just sleeping in these wooden bunks without windows. And in the forests in New Hampshire, even in the summer, it gets cold. We had maybe 6 blankets. And if a foot went out of the blanket, you were waking up in the morning with a frozen foot. It was so cold. And we had several, at least 2 encounters with a bear, not too far away. It was an elk crossed the camp, and they had to shoot it down. I mean, it was but it was a funny experience.
So JTCC, that was just another full summer.
Yeah, there was a full summer. I actually worked with the little kids, and that was nice. There was some of the, actually, Taylor Delaney. Now she is the director of the. I think she's actually the daughter of one of the older directors. But at the time she was younger, and she was kind of guiding us. She was taking care of the tiny kids, and she introduced us to this is how you coach, and a few things I still have to not remind myself, because it became a habit. But when I see other coaches doing it, she still comes to my mind, like the fact of, okay, if you're coaching on a larger group, it just comes natural, to the teenage coach right now, to sit on the post with the hands over there and just stare at the ball and say nothing, but and she was like, no, keep walking, keep giving feedback, you can give different types of feedback, but still show energy, show that you're there. And it's and again, not technical instruction. There was my gosh, I can't remember the name right now. This I think she was from China, actually, and her son is playing college tennis. But anyway, she was a good teacher with the little kids, and I was helping out. I was just being being a helper. So I was running a court, but I was being told what to do. Maybe sometimes, they were telling me, do this type of drill, do this, but
You certainly must have observed the other parts of the program.
Yeah, and it was. I mean, I remember some of the players. I met Francis Tiafoe once. It was just there visiting. But I mean, the high performance program, that's the thing that I remember. It was getting let's say the little kids coaches, they were getting a little frustrated with the high performance coaches, because we were working so hard, okay, we need to have a plan, we need to be consistent also with what we tell with the kids, and it's have a feel that the camp is structured. And then you would see these former players that were really good at hitting the ball, and they were working as coaches for the high performance players, and they were just showing up, and it's all right, let's hit some crosses, and let's hit some serves, okay, sets, and they were getting paid twice as much as us, without having to raise a finger to work, and just because they had in a sense, the experience of playing, and that's always the same story. Then, of course, there is some great coaches, Vesa Ponka. I mean, I saw him giving some lessons, and I was just observing. And,
Finnish
background.
Or from Finland. I understand they do a very good job of character development.
Yeah. And a couple of coaches from Africa, actually, which I don't remember the name, but they were taking care of the junior champ program, the green ball, and they were, they were coaching. They were strong, And I remember that if the kids, even if they were 9 or 10, and there is a lot of spoiled kids like in junior tennis, everywhere, in the States, in Denmark, in Italy. But if somebody was not behaving like they were, they were not holding back, like what happens here, they were coaching, like really. So that was good to see. And but I must say I didn't learn again the nuts and bolts. Like that's what I was missing. That's something that I kind of got a hang on how to communicate with the kid, how to connect with the kid, how to a little bit on group dynamics. How to organize the lesson, how to make the rotations, how to keep it active, keep it fun, keep it. But if you don't know how a back and volley looks, you don't know how a back and volley looks. There is no way around it.
Yeah,
so,
that's well put. That's a term we use, nuts and bolts. Well, you're only 27. How long ago did you connect with our content? How'd that come about?
It was about 2 years ago, I think, when or maybe more. Well, when lockdown started, actually, and I had some extra free time, and I started listening to podcasts here and there, and I bumped into one of your and Andy Fitzel podcasts, and as I told you, like when you're used to like this fancy like tennis podcast in which everybody's super pumped and speaking super fast, then you bumped into your podcast, and then you listen to you speaking very slowly and speaking about old people in a sense, because I didn't know them, and I'm still ignorant, but back then I was even more ignorant. I was just hearing names of people that, okay, this must be like back in the 30s, I don't even know. But then again, it was lockdown, so the only thing I could do, it was like listen to stuff, and then they just built a wall in our club where I work. So I was listening to some tips and stuff, like when you pull out a podcast about the volleys, about the different grips, and then I go out at the wall and I try out like changing the grip. Of course, I've always been volleyed like with a strong continental grip, back and side, forehand side, and then I try it out, and it's like, okay, this makes sense. I can almost like I can hit a decent forehand volley. And then I started listening about the serve, and then I was trying to work myself, like trying to fix my serve, and then I tried some of the stuff that that you guys put out there, and I was like, okay, this is working as well. So I said to myself, okay, I might as well go and check the online courses, and that's what I did, and it was good that then also when normal life resumed in a sense, and I went back to my education, I was already hooked in a sense. But it was really good to have the free time to really dig in, and then watch. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say I binge watched like the videos. Not really. I mean, it took me, I would say, a good 4 months, like to go through like tennis intelligence applied. I didn't do it in 1 weekend, but every day I was listening like to 2-3 videos, and then I was having the lessons, and then I was trying out on myself, on the students. And then again, I was just getting confirmation, that all the stuff that was being said, it was working. And then, that's why I kept digging. And then, it's just, but it's just every time that I re-listen to a podcast or that I re-watch a video, then I find some new, like, nuances in a sense. It's something that you missed the first time that you can go back and figure out, okay, this actually makes it even better. So it's... it's really brilliant, and after that, I'm just again, I have so much like to fix it. You've seen my technical video, and there is only so much that you can do when you don't. And again, I could and I should have been able to do it like myself, like just recording myself hitting on the wall. I didn't do it enough, but again, I still have a lot of work to do. But you should see my serve like before starting to work on this material. It was awful. It was. You have in mind like Francis Tiafoe serve, like the way it goes down and up, and it's like it was like when I go back and watch the videos, I'm like, okay, no, it's not good enough still, but it's a lot better. It looks a lot more like a serve, and and it's I think it's good like that I found out about this now that I'm still like I'm still playing, I'm still competing, and in a sense it's. I feel like I'm obliged like to play like I'm trying to teach the kids, because we do have like leagues and like the team matches at the club, or tournaments, and then there is the kids watching. So if I preach of, oh well, you should go to the net, oh well, this is how you should hit, like the whatever topspin backhand or the serve, and then I do it in a completely different way, I mean, it wouldn't make sense. You still have to lead by example. So it's.
Well, your background in academia, obviously you're a student. Tennis Intelligence Applied is a long course, 25 hours. And that's where we put together the course GreatBase, because it's hour and a half, 2 hours max. But we found that a lot of people would not complete the course. When we first put Tennis Intelligence Applied out, our webmaster told us that country by country, America was number one for most people who signed up, but Serbia was number one for people who had completed the course.
That's brilliant.
The GreatBase is the quick version.
Yeah. No, but it's really like it's really game changing. When you see that in action. Because it's like when you see that on the podcast, I had a hard time like figuring out the visual. But then when you see that, and it's like, and again, it helps, like, just seeing, like, also when, on the short videos, and now I can't find them anymore. I think they've been put down of YouTube. Like, if Andy Fitzel was doing some, some quick tips, videos about, okay, this is how you hold the grip, or this is how, even the grip system.
You mean the Instagram posts?
No, actually, there was some videos on YouTube, or maybe it's just my account. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But that was also very helpful. Just having the visual in front of you and make it clear, and catchy too. That's the thing with the Tennis Intelligence Applied compared to the other courses. Like, okay, that the video quality and the audio quality is not as brilliant as in the others. So it's like you need to, be really hooked on the material, like to stick to it. And that's the problem, I think, of some of like, let's say, my generation, or the generation like younger than me, because as soon as the video quality is not top notch and you don't have like banners coming up at you, like fancy arrows, and the boom sounds and this kind of stuff, then it becomes boring, but when you value the content, in a sense, it's.
Yeah, we've been told by many people that we're rich in content, but we're just not too slick on how we get it out there. But the goal, what we're waiting on, is I retain a lawyer and have the GreatBase become a nonprofit, and we hope to, then people will be able to donate money, and we want to do a much better job reaching more people. Mm-hmm. The lawyer said it's a body of work. I mean, it's really. We've always said that Vic Braden's a Christmas tree and everyone else is an ornament, some pretty strong ornaments. But just for core teaching, if you just took Braden, Vandermeer, and Van Horn, and there's others. I mean, I think of Jim Lair with the mental toughness, or Bill Jacobson with stats. People need to know the history behind it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll use my name in third person. Steve Smith stuff. And then Andy helped out. I've known Andy for 20-some years, but for well over 2 years, maybe it was a 3-year period, because of the pandemic, he did a great job. And actually, it was very tiresome for Andy, because he would just be asked the same question over and over and over again. The same shots. This is 1960 tennis, old school tennis. This is not how the pros play today. And but all you have to do is, as Andy would say, just watch your students hit balls, and the fundamentals are lacking in all over the world. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, that is true.
With your coworkers, how does that work out? I mean, you're using the GreatBase curriculum.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's one of the questions I actually wanted to ask you, because I mean, it's good, because I do have, for example, I'm being helped out by Hilvi's dad. He's actually helping us out as an assistant coach, and he doesn't have a strong background in tennis. He's always been like playing tennis, but he was a former professional hockey player
from Czechoslovakia,
from Czech Republic.
Yeah.
So it's like he's aware that he knows that he doesn't know, so he's open. Like, his mind is open. So if you if you give him a suggestion, if you tell him, look, this is how we should teach the backhand volley, this is, he takes it in, and then he brings it out to the kids, because he accepts that, okay, I don't know how to hit a backhand volley, so I'm gonna listen to you, and I'm gonna, I'm going to teach it the way that, because I of course explain, it's not my thing. I always say, it's like, okay, I've just been studying this, and it works, and yeah, I do give credit, and it's like, I mean, I always suggest, like, to the coaches and to the kids, like, to read Vic Braden's book, and listen to your material, but there is so much online. It's crazy. It's crazy how people don't go for it, because it's out there. But yeah, it could be better in a sense, and we are a bit challenged, like, in a sense that we have teenagers in the coaching team, like classic, that in a normal situation they would be just, you're in charge of the 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 10-year-olds, because you're 16 and you're a little bigger. But we try not to do it that way, and then otherwise there is the other players that also play some tennis themselves, and they also coach. So if they believe that they need to turn the doorknob on the forehand, and you tell them, look, you don't move the wrist, when you hit the forehand, like, especially if you are trying to teach a 7-year-old, the wrist is stiff, basically. It's like you try to cut out the wrist and swing from the shoulder, and as you say, like, release from the elbow. But they have a really hard time letting that in, because that's how they feel that they hit the forehand, and then they always come up with, but have you seen Francisco Cerundolo's forehand, or Berrettini's forehand, have you seen where they finish? And it's like, and it's always the same situation as, Andy Fitzgerald finds himself, because it's like, then it's, you explain, but if somebody doesn't want to listen, they don't want to listen. So it's not as easy, but I want to also to hear, like, some some tips from your experience as in trying to create a consistent team, and that's what I like when you say that, okay, you need consistency in your program, because I realize that if I'm coaching a kid today and I'm telling the kid one thing, and then the next day another coach is with the kid, and they're being told a different tip on how to hit the back and how to hit the forehand, how to hit the serve, it's not going to work, because then they have different voices, and then they're just going to do it their way, and usually their way is not the right way.
Well, you need continuity,
yeah,
consistency. I think one thing to develop a culture, and I've traveled many places and worked as a consultant, traveling clinician, and you film everybody. Every coach has to be filmed. Every coach has to have a video made. You don't have to be currently playing. You don't even have to run. We're just going to toss some balls to you, hit a forehand, hit a backhand, and then we need to film that. The skill testing. Yeah. There's so many things to skill test, but just the basic 25 shots, multiply. Kid makes 10 out of 25. They're 40%. That's their 40 percentile, and it's like in academia, their reading level would be low. But you start a written file, a video file. It's labor intensive to start the right way, and only beginners don't have to have the videotape made. We make it a prerequisite. And it's nice when you send it. Now it's a private YouTube clip. It used to be a CD. It was a VHS tape. I've been doing this since the 80s, and we document everything. So then the parent has to sit and watch it with the child. And then, we love to do it with the camera on a tripod. A kid comes back and say, well, you need to watch it 3 times, send us notes, put the notes in logical sequential order. But then you point the camera at the kid. You want feedback. Point the camera, tell me, what you're doing inefficiently. The words. It's not that it was wrong, you're doing inefficiently. And then the prevention of injury, all the rationale has to be shared. But kids, well, I take the racket low and then bring it back up high, take it low a second time. Well, are you going to be committed to making the change? I think another thing too is that misery enjoys company. If you look to your left and you look to your right, and there's, say the player coming in, there's somebody who can beat them. Maybe during their first day on site, they were beaten badly by someone, and then they're then they're actually next to you working on technique. So it becomes a community. The other thing too is with doing it from the very beginning. For us, now the way it's set up is that we have a pretty captive audience. You got off the airplane from Denmark, you were convinced to come here. I would say that's the way it is with everyone. We do know in club coaching, maybe you should just help the player with a one shot first and then win them over, gain their trust. But we're saying film before you do any teaching. Number one is people will come back and say, you ruined my game. Yep. And a Vic Braden line is, what game? Vic wouldn't say that in front of people. He loved the fact that I would. That, your game, what game? You have no game. You're lucky to find the bathroom. You couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. No, there's so much interference. I would say for every person who supports us right now, there's probably 2 who don't, because they don't have the background from a tennis education standpoint. Tennis coaches, I get myself in trouble, but they're not well read. It's just very, very common, I think, around the world. I've been in so many different countries, spent a lot of time in Denmark. Never was fortunate enough to be in Italy, but worked with a lot of Italians. It just goes around and around where just because you're the player doesn't mean you should get the job. I think most federations, too, they hire former players. And, that's one of the things that doesn't take place so much in American TV is that education. You need to have people that have really studied the game. Not, it's great to listen to former players, but it's like I always say, you're a saxophone player. If you want to play the saxophone, hire an instructor. If you want to be inspired to play the saxophone, go to a concert. So again, it's inspiring to work with former players, but it's not generally informative. Oh. So I think to create the team, you have to make things just mandatory. And the other thing is, I make people make the videos. What's I think intimidating, we could have a 15-year-old come and a 12-year-old is going through the checkpoints with them. So it's, we teach everyone to teach. That's part of it. Teaching's information transfer. So when you point a camera, I've had many students that, I disagree with that. I say, okay, let's get a video in front. And now you're actually going to critique the strokes. And they're stuck. The more they say, the less they know. And I think also, there's so many people that are pretentious. They're pretending that they've actually worked with a beginner and had them advance to the point where, they're going to national tournaments now. It's sad that what happens is that so many times at a club, you're saying that, the younger coaches with the younger players, I've worked many places where the kids that are in 10 and under groups, people are doing a really good job teaching them. And then they advance out of that, into the high performance, and there's no connection. And I think a lot of people are confused that they think they outgrow basics. But it's just like shooting a foul shot from in basketball from the foul line. It's still the same fundamentals, and in every sport. Unfortunately, we don't get that in tennis, but in every sport you need to keep working the basics.
No, but one thing I was thinking about, in a sense, the issue is that in the club environment, for example, in the club situation in which I'm living right now, is like most of the coaches, I actually including me. It is a full-time job, meaning that you work full-time, but you don't get quite paid as a full-time job, so it's like everybody else is like either studying or as another job, or is like, so there is very few full-time coaches, and it gets even worse as soon as you get out of like a larger city, like, in Odense, where I'm at right now, we're probably one of the few clubs in which coaches get paid. It gets, as soon as you get out in the countryside, then there is tennis clubs, there is people playing, but the kids are taking lessons with volunteer coaches that are usually like the parents of the players that want to play. So it's like, you know, sometimes it's hard to hold people accountable when it's like, well, I'm here 3 hours a week. What do you want from me? You know, it's like, because they're actually doing like without anything else, and then they're on the court like 2-3 hours a week. So that's one challenge for sure. And then one thing that it came to my mind, because it's like you realize that both the player and like the teenager, like neither of them, maybe they know how to hit the ball more or less, but they for sure they don't know how to teach. Like when you say that the teaching is information transfer, and I realize, you know, the more I work, the better I you know, I feel that I get it, you know, transfer information. But you know, if these people, even if you give them the right information, then they are still gonna have a hard time like transferring them, because they are not born teachers. Like if you get a 16-year-old that has never taught before, then it gets really challenging. Like, you know, maybe the kid is a little shy, maybe the kid doesn't have communication skill, or maybe you get a former player that has never, you know, coached like a beginner, and then it's tough. So I thought about, have you ever thought or tried about like getting some school teachers? Like because I've had some really good experiences with like people that have played very little tennis, but they're really good teachers. And you know, as Hilvi said, like as you know, they have a clear mind, meaning that they are aware that they don't know how to do the things, but they are really good at transferring the information. So have you ever tried like getting somebody that knows very little about tennis and then teaching them, like let's say?
Oh, for sure. I mean, resources. First of all, in my opinion, you're much better off. I'm a member of the PTR, USPTA. Was a tester for both. I think, you know, 40 plus years in both organizations. I recommend everyone, you know, in this country, okay, be proactive, become a member of the two organizations. But I would much rather train a coach, train a teacher, coach, whatever the title may be, than hire one.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, it was Andy Fitzell. He happened to call me, and I was talking to Brandon Flanagan, who runs the FM Tennis Performance Center. And I had just got done telling Brandon, I said, it's dangerous to hire anybody over the age of 25. So Andy had no idea what I said. And I said, hey, Andy, Brandon just asked me this question. And Andy just said, I would never hire anybody over the age of 25. Because they have experience, you know, it's the macho male ego too. And, you know, again, you don't want to typecast or put anybody in one category, but resources. The Vic Braden Tennis College, used to have this conversation all the time with Vic. Time Magazine called his facility the best tennis teaching facility in creation. I mean, you just would turn a switch and the ball machine would be going, you turn a switch and the people are being filmed. They didn't even know they were being filmed. They go from the film court to this simulated ball machine, geometrically set. Ball comes out every 4 seconds. And it's just like, wow. With everything from the baskets in the corner, where you know, players didn't have to pick balls up. You would just sweep them into the corner. And then he had the basket set where the pro didn't have to bend. You know, the basket was right up chest level, and you know, of course, the Braden feed, the rapid fire feed. But I've taught places where, especially when you travel, you have no idea where you're going to teach. It's an adventure, right? If I walk around the corner, okay, to be challenged that way. So one of my fond memories is teaching PE classes. You know, I've had students watching me teach a PE class. And I remember the athletic director was a little put out with me at first, because I said, well, help your PE teachers teach the PE classes. Why do they need your help? I said, well, we have this unique program. And then actually what happened with the PE teachers, all but one is really interesting. You know, of course, they were coaches. They were a football coach, baseball coach. They would leave. You know, then they got to the point where they didn't even come to take attendance. Just one said, hey, this is great. I want to learn how to teach tennis. But to be out there with 24 beginners by yourself. No, you want to be able to teach anybody and everybody. And especially with really young children. You know, like early childhood development classes, you know, it's more and more prevalent today, separation anxiety, you know, little kids in a ECD, early child development class, and they want to be with mom, want to be with dad, and you have parents teaching. It's like, okay, let's get a grip sticker. Let's make sure they have the grip, because a little 5-year-old is going to hang on to the racket a different way every time. No substitute for a good beginning. With no, it's it's really, how's it go? Tragedy. Comedy is tragedy with time. What'll happen is people who have a playing background and haven't prepared to be a tennis teacher, they're going to hide. They're going to disappear. They're not going to coach little kids. And that's the lifeline of tennis. Is when people start in tennis, they need to stay in tennis. So they really need to be taught. And then, pickleball here in the States. Tennis is a difficult sport, but education. So, it is a bonus. Welby Van Horn was arguably the best player-teacher combination. He just said today that playing is just a bonus. If you can play, great, but it doesn't really. It's way overrated. Yeah. Way overrated. But that Welby was. He was just a genius, as far as, okay, this is what you do with the beginner. And, I mean, you being here, 10, 12 days now? Yeah. Scott Reed was here, a volunteer coach. He used to spend a lot of time with us. He was here with Delaney, 5-year-old. I had another dad just shadowing us, Alex, with his son, James. He's 10 years old. It's the family that gets a tennis player down the road. And you have to get people to understand home training, put up mirrors. These are the routines you have to do, and it's so much trial and error, instead of specific instruction.
Yeah. But I managed to get like one question out of each of our kids. So like I think it could fit well, because for example, Guy, like he asked about he was surprised like to see tiny kids, like Delaney, like what's the name? Lincoln, for example.
Lincoln, yeah.
Little Lincoln, or also me. I mean, she's only 8, but it's like to keep them motivated, because it's like it's usually the kids at those ages just want to run around and have fun, It's like to actually, keep them on track, like to make them stick like to good form, good technique from the start. I heard you saying something about it's about how you talk to the kid, and that's something that impressed me very much. Coming here, that's like you say, like Vic Braden used to say, is like no little strokes for a little fox. You just teach them the most efficient way, and that's correct. But also, the way you look at them in the eye, and it's like you talk to them as if they're a grown-up athlete, and it's like it's not hit and giggle. So I'm sure that's one thing. But if you have other tips on how to keep the little kids engaged with the
I think one thing with little kids is just that, find a way to have them be with the big kids.
Yeah,
it's too stratified. We're okay. Yeah, at a typical tennis club around the world, the kids in the 18 and under, they don't know the little kids. It needs to be the train. It needs to be the caboose. The caboose is early child development. And, the 18s need to pull the 16s. 16s need to pull the 14s. They all need to start at the same time. And if you do technical teaching and, say someone has to keep the racket up higher on the forehand or backhand, or typically a lot of players are taught to take the racket straight back and say, okay, you're 17, but we have this 7-year-old who's going to toss balls to you. You toss them, and then also too is that we're not, you toss them 8 to be great, and switch it around. What's the industry norm is to get a basket of balls and put someone next to the basket of balls who's played a little bit of tennis, and it's a factory, and people just get out happy, busy, good, and they just do drills across the baseline. Vic Braden, easygoing guy, but one thing that would drive him nuts is to watch people just do forehands across the baseline. And it's just the norm. And if you actually judge that, get a stopwatch on it, it's amazing how every day they're starting with a forehand, and then if it's only a 1 hour lesson, 1 hour clinic, what other shots do they even get to? So, how you talk to a kid, expectations, feedback. I mean, I bore our listeners with Bradenism. Don't underestimate the capacity of the learner. We don't use the KISS method. Oh yeah, we want to simplify, but with kids, keep it simple, stupid. It's a crime that you have the blind leading the blind at a tennis club. The young tennis teachers, they need the best teachers. Now, typically what's going to happen is, say a country club in the U.S., club, doesn't matter, that the director has the best playing background, has a salary, and he just gives hitting lessons to the kids who can play a little bit. They're the best kids at that club, and there's really, that's what's great to hear about Dave Porter. Okay, there's orientation. And many times when people are hired, they're just like, hey, you're on court 12. Go take over court 12. No training whatsoever. No training whatsoever. But it's humility as well. And it's empathy. It's, care for others. In other words, no, you can practice with anybody and everybody. And, what happens in our environment, our culture, our world is the first person who's here for the first time, they figure out their tennis IQ is pretty low. They don't have information. And I think it's just really earth-shattering when they go, I'm being told this by someone who's 4 years younger than I am. And so I feel when I go to work, we're doing just a small project here in Boynton Beach, but I have an army of tennis teachers. If I've been working with someone for 5 years, like say someone like Malhar Patel, we're pounding our fist to the table, he's got to do this and do that to be better. But we get in trouble for saying it, but he his core knowledge is way higher than the typical tennis teaching pro. One of our students was on Chad Berryhill, and smart guy. He said about the PTR and the USPTA, he goes, you have to prepare for the test because you're going to be smarter than the test. With the USPTA, I can remember Craig Tiley, Dave Anderson, Mike Carter, Steve Young, Jennifer Roberts. I can just go through all the people that work so hard to make that go. So we broke the record for the largest test with both PTR and USPTA at one point. And both organizations were going to Japan, and really that's where they were testing lots of people one time. And we would get in the room with 15 testers. And after the testing was done, especially with the USPTA, because Dennis Vandermeer was more systematic. He was based on group dynamics, and Dennis, again, genius. But with that, I would tell all the guys and gals, I go, when you go in there, no one laughs. No one even snickers. Because we would go in and they say, well, you got to have the elbow in on the forehand volley. You need to, scratch your back. You need to point. You need to shuffle back. They would throw out myth after myth that we had been trained not to do, but that was part of the test. And, I'm not current, so I can't really say as it really improved, the PTR and the USPTA with, I did meet with the CEO of the USPTA at one point, and, we really need to have, here's the Vic Braden course. And, if people study our content, they've already really done that, but just Vic used to have United States Tennis Academy, USTA. At that time, the USTA was a USLTA. And, there was a film loop that was a little bit difficult. I remember thinking, getting the scissors when people split their arms on a toss. I said that was down together, up together. Get that question wrong. But I was, like yourself, fanatical about studying. I got 197 out of 200. But you had to know the information. Feedback is so important. what's the 3-point landing? Oh, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? And it's amazing how kids don't get set and they don't understand ground reaction force, kinetic chain, how they need to lift. It's just amazing that people don't really honor basics.
Yeah. No, but it's, it is so much work, and that's the thing that, I had really high expectations coming here. You can understand, crossing the ocean, I studied this a lot and I was expecting a lot as well, but it's overwhelming, like the amount of time and energy, and it's just love, it's just what you spend on each player that comes by over here. It's, when you say it's not the industry norm, it's out of this world, and that's really mind-blowing, but one thing that I have been thinking for a while, it's like, have you read the Simon Sinek book, Start with Why? Starting with Why?
No, but I've read quite a bit that he's written.
But
and he has a lot of interesting YouTube clips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's just about, sometimes you figure out, because when you get through the courses and the podcast, you learn a lot about the what and the how. But, there must be, I've always been curious about the deeper why, because you put so much work in this and you have been doing it for so many years. And it's like the first time we talked on the phone and I asked you like about if you had some connections, like around Scandinavia or Germany, somebody I could get in touch with until I could come here. And I remember you saying, well, but watch out because coaches get lazy, It's like even if I train them, it's just easier not to keep up this much work. So I'm just curious, what's your why? And I heard some, I heard you saying about getting more Americans into college tennis, and that makes sense. But and getting kids to hit all shots from everywhere in the court. But I just from a personal standpoint, like
I think anybody who's been involved in sports a long time, they've had a bad experience with a bad coach. I certainly have had that. And, I just stop and think all over the world is kids are, it's, it's adults as well, that they're given a bad deal. The coach is making it up. The coach is winging it. And to the coach, we say, it's just another Miller lesson. They'll make enough money to buy some Miller beer afterwards. So to improve tennis teaching with, to be able to look in someone's eye, the game, tennis, the guardians of the game are overall, I don't think, doing a very good job. I think it's a money grab. We need to find out ways. I thought one thing during the pandemic is maybe people would spend more time on how you could teach a lot of people at one time, because tennis is expensive. If the pro had the skill set to work with 24 players at the same time. Well, if you really know technique, our system is a system of systems. System just means organized plan. Well, certainly I'd like to have a whistle around my neck, but I could go out with 24 people and not have a problem with, okay, we're going to work on forehand volleys. And everybody needs to keep doing the basics, repetition, reinforcement with, I think the idea leave the place better than you found it. With the nonprofit, my goal would be to reach out from my grave and improve tennis teaching. I think it's great what came out a week or so ago with the Tennis Channel. I just got all these boxes from the Vic Braden Library that are books, and the Tennis Channel just wanted to film. And, I knocked on a lot of doors, and a group of us were in negotiations to control the Vic Braden Library. But I think the Tennis Channel, with their outreach, perhaps is going to be the best. But someone has to be connected with that information. It can't be, like, say, Tracy Austin, who's such a classy lady. She spoke at Vic's tribute. Jean Austin, her mother, she ran the pro shop. The whole Austin family, they're so close to Vic and so positive. But they haven't worked the information. In other words, to go out in the trenches and have the Vic Braden information and teach hour after hour after hour. That's the only way that you're going to understand. You would learn, more from Vic Braden once you studied Vic Braden, then you go out and you work on your own. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So, people probably get tired of us. I do think, Andy and I have always talked about that. Well, it's hero worship that we have Vic on such a pedestal, but people just don't understand. It's, the GreatBase, oh, it's a cult. No, people are bonded because of the information. Do tennis coaches know 19.1 degrees? No, they don't. And so then the Bradenism, the dimensions of the court and physical laws dictate stroke production. And, with the tennis math, you said you listened to that podcast many, many times, is so much of that comes from Braden. So, no, I think tennis is a difficult sport. It's happening right now before our eyes, where pickleball is invading tennis here in the States. Less people are playing. It's booming in other parts of the world. But then also, too, in all fairness, some other sports, they didn't exist before, where, the exports, whatever. It wasn't that many things to choose from years ago. With Vic Braden, people buy the tennis clothes and wear them in the grocery store because it's difficult, very difficult for, say, entry-level adult players. But if, people knew how to practice, it just doesn't make any sense. You're a musician. Okay, you're going to take one lesson and be ready for a recital? No, you have to practice. And tennis is the same way. And you should be able to run social practices. Hey, come on out, let's practice. And you should be able to interface adults and juniors learning together. That's unfortunate too. But I do think the skill set, but again, so many people are really good players and they're just working with someone who, is pretty good for the area. And, they're not really touching that many people, or they're just, they're not reaching the masses. If you're, say you are that director, or you're in charge and you're just working with kids who can already play, and they could play pretty well before you even met them. But you can go on automatic pilot and be out on the center court and just hit some balls with the advanced kid. And they thrive on the intention. It's a FUBAR, a military term. Effed up beyond all recognition, effed up beyond all repair.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true, and yeah, you can see that. It's not just in the States. It's in Denmark, like in the area where we are, like in West Denmark, like it is rough, like with the number of players going down. And I honestly don't blame it on padel, however you call it here in the States, because it's different. It's a different audience, that I think also with pickleball. I haven't seen that many kids playing paddle back in Denmark. It's more of like a middle-aged sport, or like somebody that is like after in their 20s, going to hang out with their friends and is social. But for the kids, I haven't seen it becoming a threat, like from a developmental standpoint. It's just the kids don't play tennis anymore, and they are just in other sports. So it is a shame. But we really need a revolution in that part of Denmark. And there is the potential, because there is the kids, there is the structure, there is the money, because people actually do have money, they have time, and it's just a matter of there has been so many years without guidance, without information, and there's been as you were saying, like the national coaches, is like great people, but I saw in your notes like Freddie Nielsen, and he's a great guy. I met him once, and now I think he's a national coach for the juniors or something like that.
Is he retired?
He is retired as a player.
Yeah, I've got down with just a few things. 2012, he won Wimbledon doubles, but his grandfather, Kurt Nielsen, born in 1937 in the world, he reached the Wimbledon final in 53, 55. He won the U.S. Open mixed with Thea Gibson. I think that was 57. But yeah, his grandson with, I think a lot of times players who are very successful like that, he's a Wimbledon champion, they're much more approachable than someone who doesn't play at a world-class level. But yet, you need to get them in the room and get them to sit down and say, hey, this is what we need to do. Not anything towards Frederick, but most top players, it's too much work. I mean, it's really work to learn how to teach tennis. Now, to say, well, excuse me, I'm just going to immerse myself into this, and I won Wimbledon doubles in 2012, but I'm going to be able to teach 8-year-olds. And I think many times, they're always being asked about their experiences. Just a few other things here. Tennis players from your country, I should say, we go through Italy as well, but I've got some notes on Italian players. Kenneth Carlson, 41 in the world, won 3 ATP doubles. I believe that he's with the federation. He was the Davis Cup captain. I don't know if he still is.
And I see sometimes on TV, like doing some
commentating.
Mm-hmm.
Wozniacki, she's doing commentating here. Number 1 in the world. She won the Australian finalist in the US Open twice. Her mother from Poland was on the national Polish volleyball team. Her father, Polish. That's what brought them to Denmark, is he played professional soccer in Denmark. Her brother played professional soccer. So I was like, okay, this kid's an athlete. Or she was growing up with athletes. You read about her, she started hitting the backboard. She had a flawed serve, but number 1 in the world. And you'd have to think, okay, she's growing up in Denmark, but that Eastern European mentality, hungry dog hunts best. Number 5 on the all-time money list, earned over $35 million. So I wouldn't say that her tennis instruction, not that I know, but from what I've read, like a Nadal, not really from refined tennis information. Like Nadal, he comes from soccer. We talked about Leighton Hewitt not too long ago. It comes from Australian football. But then when if she were to know, like when she's commentating right now, she really should study, like GreatBase Tennis, or she should study information. Because when she's on TV talking about forehands and backhands, which they don't really do that much of, it's like, if I could just blow a whistle every time they say something that's not even close. Of course, she's pretty blonde. I think it has a little bit to do with it. But it's the credibility. Okay, she was number 1 in the world. With, here's the Dane I want to talk about, though. Torben Ulrich reached a round of 16 6 times at Grand Slams, played Wimbledon 21 times, played over 100 Davis Cup matches, played Davis Cup at 49 years of age. So, what will happen is people say, well, in Denmark, we're not developing players. No, you have a history. You can go back to Kurt Nielsen. He's in the Wimbledon finals twice. Tennis players come from everywhere. Torben Ulrich is still living. He's 93. You can tell us your thoughts with him. Philosopher, poet, painter, musician, writer, student of religion. With on YouTube, it's amazing the homework you can do. With Carlos Goffey, who was one of our guests, talking to his son Josh not too long ago, coach of South Carolina. Carlos, a fun Brazilian, he was hitting balls with Torben Ulrich. What a privilege. And he just hit 2 or 3 balls, baseline to baseline, and don't think Torben Ulrich ever raised his voice, but he called him to the net and said, slow down, you're hitting the ball too hard. You have to feel the ball. And I think that's a very, very huge lesson with when he was in his 50s, Torben Ulrich, he ran like a teenager, fountain of youth. In 1975, I saw him play in Bill Reard's pro event in Boca West, Boca Raton, Florida. He's 47 years old. This is fun. I heard in an interview, he was asked how old he was. His answer, he paused, asked the reporter to repeat the question. He paused again. Then he replied with the following. Do you mean how old I am chronologically? How old I am physically? How old I am intellectually, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? And the reporter, I thought she handled herself quite well. And again, I remember this because I had such passion for learning tennis. And so the reporter said, physically, and the 47-year-old Torben Ulrich said, 17. and he could run like he was 17. With a few other thoughts with Torben Ulrich, he always hit a backboard, but it wasn't a backboard. You get online and just put his name in, you can see him hitting against signs. You can see him hit against dumpsters where they put the garbage, a side of a building where the ball comes back because it's not a smooth wall. And he's going, this is great. He's hitting against his backboard, and the ball's coming every which way afterwards. Practice his serve in the dark. Always about enjoying the moment. This is something with Torben Ulrich. When you play tennis, even when you lose, you win. You got to enjoy the moment. He was all about the beauty of the sport, and that's where people really, winning just really, really throws people off. Of course you want to win, but the beauty of the sport, the grace of the sport, he certainly was one for transcendental meditation, even between games. One other thing on Torben, you can say a few things about him. His only child, Lars, he was drummer for the band Metallica. There's a YouTube clip of him where he's talking about tennis. He grew up in tennis. Not only was his father world class, so was his uncle. His grandfather was the captain of the Danish Davis Cup team. Lars wanted to be a tennis player. It's funny, he says he was top 10 in Denmark. Family moves to California for his tennis. Says he moved to Newport Beach, California, and he was not even top 10 on his street. And people in Denmark just have to realize, and he says this during the interview, it was the 70s, and tennis, it just boomed. Everybody and their brother was playing tennis in America in the 70s. The tiebreaker was invented, tennis was put on TV. So at this same time, it was 80, 81, I can remember applying and being offered the job to be the assistant coach at Corona Del Mar High School. But I couldn't do it because of my hours with Braden. There was a player on that team that was playing 3 on the high school team. And I went to a match and watching him play 3. And then I see him playing for Mexico on TV. He's playing against the United States in Davis Cup. He's playing 3 on his high school team. Everybody played high school tennis. That's a topic we talk about quite often. So anyway, he left tennis. He couldn't even make the lineup at Corona Del Mar. He did go to Bollettieri's. I mentioned that 6 months. But, now I think you hear it the other way. It used to always be, Torben Ulrich's son, Lars, but now it's, Lars, I guess he's pretty big in the music world. What do you know, having lived in Denmark? What do you know about, you comment on any of those players, but especially Torben Ulrich.
No, but it's, you really feel like, I don't know enough, to be honest. I need to find out more about Torben Ulrich. And one challenge is, like I saw, as I was telling previously, that he has books, and most of his books are in Danish, so it's an extra challenge to read them. But for sure, if there is, I was unaware, and it's in a sense my bad. It's like I haven't checked enough.
Well, but just to get online, and see the strength of his legs, and the movement. You could keep digging, but I was watching him play Gonzalez on grass before the podcast, and like, wow. But they would run back in the day. People would run all day. Today people know more about nutrition. They know more about fitness. People are, they say, stronger, but they're not tougher. Everybody back in the day played 3 events at the Grand Slams. Granted that, the ball was, it was on 3 of the 4 tournaments were on grass. So when they start playing on hard court, I think it was great when Nadal won the Australian Open. He said, now I could say this. I wouldn't say it before I won, but he'd like to see less tennis played on hard courts because it's very tough on the body. And then with these rackets, the ball basically is, that's where people look at the old players and go, oh, they're terrible. No, the ball is just slower. But the skill set than what they actually show. In many ways, it's, things they're doing were better.
Yeah.
Volleying skills.
No, but I mean, but still, I mean, with those, with that gear, still they were able to do, like, the serves were still powerful. They were still hitting the ball. It was impressive, and managing to keep the head of the racket up, like on the volleys when you watch, and again, that's something else that really changed my perspective over tennis. Like hearing the names that you guys mentioned, like in your information in your podcast, and when you feel that, okay, I don't know this guy, then you go on YouTube and you watch a clip, and then you watch an interview, and then you find out about the story, and it's like, okay, right now I realize I know nothing about Rod Laver, for example. And then it's like, what do I do? You do some research, but then I'm reading like the autobiography, and it's like it opens up like a lot of doors. Just the fact of learning from the past and realizing first of all the history of the sport, and it's like what those guys had to go through, like in order to compete and to play, and then that really makes you understand how privileged we are right now. Like how easy it is for us. I mean, thinking about the guy that he had to, just, what was he, like 17, 18, like leaving home for months, like to go around the world and play tournaments and then come back. I mean, that's something that, of course, still Australian players and, and players from farther countries farther away, they still have a harder time, but it's not as, it's not as hard. I mean, the kid lived his house when he was 13. Like, that's something that is admirable, and it's like he's, the work ethic, the commitment of the players from the, and again, the poise as well. That's something that impressed me, like, so much, even watching players like Jimmy Connors, that at the time were like the crazy ones. They were actually not that crazy compared to what we have right now. It is like, and most of them, I mean, watching Sampras play, watching Borg play, I mean, watching Arthur Ashe play is like, it feels like, they're really able to live by the principle of the taking the winning and the losing in the same way. Like they lose a point, okay, I'll play the next. They win the point, okay, I win the next. But even in somebody that is one of my idols, Rafa Nadal is like, okay, when he wins a point, when he wins a big game, it's like it's so much, I mean, all the fancy stuff, all the screaming. It's cool, but it's not as cool as poised as it was back in the day. I mean, that's so impressive. And if you never watch it, I mean, it's eye-opening, because you grew up in an era in which, you have Zverev like slapping the racket against the chairs umpire, and people are almost okay with it. And it's just a different, and then that's why I want to find out more about Torben Ulrich, because he sounds one of the, the players to learn.
Well, especially because kids need to do so much with relaxation, and just enjoy the game, the beauty of the sport. Obviously, again, you want to win, but Virginia Wade's quote: "Winning tennis doesn't lead to beautiful tennis, but beautiful tennis leads to winning tennis." How can a kid go for years and years and not be serving volleying? How can they play doubles the way they're playing today? So yeah, it's and I think it was Stan Smith. Was this year Wimbledon was 50 years. 50 years ago he won Wimbledon. Now, he actually took lessons from Jim Verdick, and he's an ISTJ according to John Niednagel. So, an ISTJ is going to learn out of routine. They're not going to be spontaneous, but so over and over and over again. Then you talk about how he worked with George Tolley when he was at USC, and he didn't, you couldn't play your first year. And, the way that Smith and Lutz played doubles, Bob Lutz, oh yeah, they could hit better backhand returns. But the way they played doubles, there needs to be respect for that, because it was just simply outstanding. Here's a few things. A couple things to ask about Italy, but 5.8 million people, Denmark, north of Germany, approximately the size of South Carolina, approximately 7,000 miles of coastline, 400 islands. You could tell me your feedback on this. Considered one of the happiest countries in the world. Great welfare benefits, low corruption, well-functioning democracy. Hopefully it's not as divided as here in the U.S. right now. Small population. Copenhagen, largest city, 800,000 people, largest city. But overall, what's your general impression of the happiest country in the world?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense it is. Like, it is because, I mean, the system, the government, like, I mean, takes care of a lot, for the population, and that makes things easier, And when you have of course, citizens have to pay a lot of taxes, like, to make the system run. It's basically the same amount of taxes that people have to to pay in Italy. The only difference is, like, in Denmark, actually everybody's paying taxes. That's a bit of, and there is a different respect for the institutions. That's something that is also a big difference. Even though the background from, like, if you compare, like, Italy and Denmark, both countries, they have, in a sense, a more socialistic background. Compared to the States, in which is a lot more capitalistic. But the services. I mean, people over there complain about the healthcare system, the train system. Coming from Italy, I mean, it's like it's actually pretty good, which is a blessing. It could also be a curse, because it's like having it so easy, it's not making people tough, and they always have a plan B, in a sense. It's like, even if they are total average, even if you're not that good at anything, you can still manage to make a decent living, because they'll find a way. There is, like, if there is unemployment benefits, there is support from the government. They help you finding a job, they give you money. Like, I mean, some things are, when I talk to my friends that I have in Italy about how it works if you are unemployed in Denmark. I mean, some friends of mine, they're working full time and they're making the same amount of money that they get as unemployment benefits, and they can get it for, like, months or years, until. So when you are that comfortable, then you get people that are a little softer, and that's one thing.
With you're way north. I one time was in Sweden on June 21st, the longest day of the year. So the sun never went down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's midnight, and they have special windows. How about on the winter side of things in Denmark?
Yeah,
when does it get dark? That could be a little depressing.
Too early. Yeah, and then that's why also, I mean, the happiest country in the world, I mean, and some of the Danish people watching, I mean, now that they will, but still, there is alcohol problems, It's like people in Scandinavia, they drink a lot, and it's just a fact. And it's, and I feel, and I think, and I'm pretty sure it's also to cope with the situation, I mean, it is depressing,
So when, say, in in December 21,
Yeah,
what time does it get dark?
3 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock sometimes. And it's like, and if you have, let's say sometimes the kids in school, let's say they get in school when it's still dark, because probably the sun comes up maybe 9, 10, something like that. They are in school, indoor, like, while for the short time in which the sun comes up, most times I would say during the winter is cloudy. Some days you have a good day in which it's sunny, but then they come out of school and it's like 3:30 and it's already dark. So they might actually not get sunlight for an entire week, And I mean,
for actually the winter, but for months.
So it's, I mean, the body really feels it, and it's like, it's, and you do have vitamin D supplements, and you do have, but that's something that I suffer a lot, to be honest. I mean, because also growing up in Italy, and I mean, one thing I say, I really started appreciating good weather after I moved to Denmark, Like, now that every time there is a good day outside and the sun is up and there is no clouds, I'm like, I cannot sit indoor, I need to be outside, because it's like, especially in the spring, after you go through the winter, in which is so dark and so gloomy, and you might actually go 2 weeks in which, if it's a cloudy period, you don't get to see the sun. And I mean, so it's, That's something that you really get to appreciate.
When you talk about being comfortable, I spent a lot of time at Tennis Europe tournaments, and it is a pretty good guess if you look through a draw sheet that the players from Romania, Serbia, Croatia, the countries that are not as wealthy, their players are better.
Yeah, yeah, and that's but that's just like you say, hungry dogs.
Yeah, hungry dog hunts best. Tell us a little bit about the young player from Denmark who was like the best junior in the world, and
Holger Rune.
yeah,
Yeah, to be honest, I watched him play on TV. I never watched him live. Heard him speak a couple of times. It sounds like he has a pretty big ego. I think it's fair to say, but yeah, okay, to be that good, that young, probably you also need it, like to be that self-confident.
yeah. We were just talking about that earlier. Arthur Ashe. Yeah, you need a touch of arrogance. You need confidence. You don't want to be cocky, but you really, number one, have to believe in yourself.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. But I think it's borderline, being cocky and
Yeah.
being, when you hear him speak, I heard a couple of podcasts in which he was interviewed, and he sounds like, a little over the line. But also like how he behaved in French Open, like toward his mother and toward his team. It was. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw that.
It was, it was really sad, especially because he has such a good tournament, at such a young age. And he's like, okay, you're still doing good. You don't need to ruin your reputation in a sense, because now also people in Denmark look at him a little differently, because after you make a scene like that, it's tough. But I really hope that that he has he has a good game. He has a deep, clean forehand. I think
He's very aggressive. He's athletic. I do think that it's tough to be that age and be growing up under the microscope.
Yeah. Yeah, no, lots of pressure. But one good thing for him, I heard that he has been sticking with he has been having a coach, like through his formative years, and he never changed it. Even though now he apparently trains at Mouratoglou. And you know better than I do, like how it works over there. But still, he's followed by,
Well, for our listeners, I'm willing to take bets that Patrick Mouratoglou is paying Simona Halep. He paid Serena Williams with that's just how it works. Is Patrick is the greatest marketing person in tennis. He's right at the 2-minute waiting room at Wimbledon. He's going to be right there. He just knows when to be on TV, and he's done it time after time. At one point, 7 junior Grand Slam champions were basically given a credit card. And they can just, in that sense, he's probably doing much better than the federations. He has that type of money. His father's a billionaire. And so that's one thing that I think Patrick, like say with the young player from Greece.
Tsitsipas.
Yeah. So, he saw him on YouTube at age 12, flew in the family, and it didn't change anything. You have the same coach, whatever, but we're just going to fund you.
Yeah.
So it's no different than Bollettieri's for years, where there's a backroom deal, and that's where Nick went bankrupt many times, where he was giving so many people scholarships. You'd see a kid hit a ball and put him on a scholarship, but Patrick is definitely recruited the best players in the world, and they're in his corner. And when I was at his place in France, it wasn't the new place he has now, but obviously he's got all the bells and whistles. And but that doesn't mean that they have the basics, that they have the fundamentals. Like if there's a hole in a person's game, do they have someone there who can actually fix that? It's many times it's not even addressed. Let's talk a little bit about Italy. I did tease you and say, why is Italy shaped like a boot? You can't put all that crap in a sneaker. Oh, I'm sorry. Strike me dead. I shouldn't have said that. All those great Italians. Adriano Panatta. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
I watched him play many, many times. He beat Borg at the French. Borg played the French 8 times, won at 6. He lost twice to Panatta. But Panatta attacked. And you can get on YouTube and watch those guys, Borg and Panatta, play. And it's like Nadal, who's asked, how would you beat Nadal? He said, that's easy. Don't miss and be super aggressive. And with Panatta, Panatta said about Camille Giorgi that she's a female Jimmy Connors. She moves so well. There's a famous point where Connors hits around the net post, a huge point. I think everybody in tennis has seen that. Jimmy Connors' greatest points. But if you don't, juniors, that's where I think the coaches who listen to these podcasts could just write down, okay, here's an assignment. I listen to this podcast, listen to Torben Ulrich, go look up Torben Ulrich and watch him hit the backboard. But her serve, it's just amazing. It just remains the same year after year. Speaking of serves, there's an Italian player, Sara Errani.
Oh my goodness.
But in all credit, I mean, I think we teach these kids to have all beautiful service motions, and in a lot of ways that doesn't mean they can beat Mickey Mouse. But look at her serve, and it just shows you what type of character she had. To have such a major flaw, and to do how well she did. She got to the French Open final, played Serena Williams. I know our listeners now know Andres Barbosa is our fact checker, but you let me know if that's right. I'm 99% that's right. So she played against Serena, but Serena was just home run derby. I mean, the gal is just so palm up. Fabio Fognini. How do you say it?
Fognini.
Yeah, I know Raven Klaassen talks about playing him in doubles, and he goes, he's so relaxed. He's eating a granola bar during the points. I mean, he's taking the granola bar out of his pocket. He's chewing on it. But that guy, he hits the ball well. I mean, I just think that he's inconsistent with his fire. Yeah. Yannick Sinner, I think everyone should plug in his name as a national championship in snow skier. Amazing, so humble. But as great as he is, his backhand volley, where, it's difficult for him to go forward. But he said that he likes tennis competitions better than skiing because it lasts longer.
Yeah.
More of a challenge to figure it out. Here's something for all-court tennis, now called the Billie Jean King Cup, 2006, 2009, 2010, 2013. The Fed Cup. Billie Jean King Cup now. Italy wins it. Corrado Berazzuti? How do you say that?
Berazzuti, yeah.
Berazzuti.
Corrado.
But help me with the pronunciations. Flavia Pennetta, 2015 U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Scavone, Francesca. How do you say that?
Francesca Schiavone.
She wins the French. It was 2010. And then Roberto Vincini?
Roberta Vinci.
Vinci. Say that again.
Roberta Vinci.
Roberto Vinci. 5 Grand Slam doubles. Didn't reach the top 10 until she was 33. One-handed backhand. All-court game. Serena was on her way to trying to win the Grand Slam at the US Open. And that was a clinic. And, people get upset with me, but it was like, okay, you're both a tennis player and an athlete. But I would say if Serena had, say her name again, Roberta, yeah, I should not say that, Roberta
Vinci.
That if Serena had some skills that she had, Serena would have been even better. Scary. But those three, because they could play all-court tennis, but do people really see that? And I think that's where there's only so much time in a day, but say, hey, here's the story. And, Jim Lair, the power of storytelling. The coach won the Fed Cup teams, Berazzuti, top 10 player. He won the Davis Cup with Panatta. They lost in the finals 6 times. So when people say, Italian tennis is doing so great now, I go back to watching Rafael Reggi at the Orange Bowl. What a fighter. I mean, she had flaws in her game, like everyone. But what a tennis player. And so it's not like, well, Italy's doing well now. I mean, they've always had successful players. What would you say about Italian tennis? You hear that just like you hear in Canadian tennis, like they're doing all these things from a developmental standpoint.
I mean, again, it's hard to criticize because I've been out of it for a long time. So, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But there is a lot of stories in which the players, like the really top players coming out right now. It could be Berrettini, it could be Sinner. I mean, they do have a story that involves a coach that has followed them since when they were very little, and they haven't been having much to do with the federation. Actually, there is clear stories of Riccardo Piatti talking about the federation wanting to get Yannick under their wing, and Riccardo Piatti saying no, like this guy's not going anywhere. He stays right here with me, and I'm gonna take care of him and develop him. So that's something that then you have other players like for example Musetti, that is doing quite well right now, except today I think he lost. But I mean, he has been working in the federal center for quite some time. Again, he has been having the same coach, which I'm not sure, I'm not aware if he's being, if his coach is external or if he's part of the federation, but there is the federation center in Tirrenia, and that's where there is like the top Italian players theoretically training. Some other younger kids are coming out of there, so I'm not sure. But again, the biggest names that we have right now, they are coming out from like individual stories. I mean, and then you get guys like Fognini. I mean, moved to Spain together with Pernetta and Schiavone. Again, when they were very young, very little, they were training in the same place where I think it was Sanchez Casal, where Marat Safin was training. And that's why, I mean, I actually think, I'm not sure if they even speak Italian at home. Like, I mean, they speak Spanish so well, both him and Pernetta and Schiavone too. So, I mean, I think their game, like, has been really formed outside Italy. So that's...
I think one thing with that is you go to a more competitive environment.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, I do think, like here in the U.S. college tennis, once a kid goes to college, there's almost no connection between the college coach and the junior coach. Just dialogue, okay, what holes they have in the game, what are you working on? And in all fairness to the college coach, maybe that line of communication, there's not enough input there. But, the players that are taken away from their coach and work with the federation, people have always been up in arms in the U.S. about that. How's it go? One bad coach is better than 10 different coaches. To be working on the same thing over and over again. What about Piatti? He's someone that I don't know very much about.
Yeah, I mean, he's, I think he seems. I watched some interviews and some videos with him, and I wasn't fortunate enough to meet him in person yet, but I hope to meet him. It looks like a quieter guy in a sense. Like he's not a Mouratoglou. Like he's not a marketing guy. Like he's I think he's more he's a little more introverted probably. I wonder like personality types. I think he likes more to be in the background working with the player, and that's why often like you don't see him so much. Also, I mean, now Yannick Sinner's not working with him anymore, but also with the other players, like with Milos Raonic and Borna Čorić, when he was working with them. Sometimes he was in the box, but most times, like, he is working with them when he's back home, and then he stays at home when they go out and play tournaments. So I think he's a worker. I think he's somebody that really enjoys the process of, making the player, changing stuff. Then I don't know if... what he actually works on, because I never had the pleasure to meet him, but I mean, I think that there is some good results out of what he's been
but
doing.
you before the pandemic, you were scheduled to go to a workshop.
Yeah, I was actually going to go, and it's and that was what I was looking for, because I signed up actually for this workshop on biomechanics, and that's something that even if you look online, it's a bit of a jungle, when you try to study biomechanics, because it's like like you guys say on the podcast, you know, then you start digging in like the biomechanics, and then you're lost because they're talking about everything and anything, and it's like, I just need to know how to hit the forehand, you know, and then that's why I'm so blessed with you guys, like just making it simple, you know, because otherwise it's
Yeah, that comes from Jack Roppel, biomechanics, biomini, and no mechanics. And, you know, I think a lot of times people become fact throwers and they're trying to impress their students. But we have some people that are not biomechanists, but they're carrying on like they are. You know, that's not actually the field they studied in. And then also, too, is then, you know, the theoretical and the practical. I mean, the lecture in the lab, that's one thing that was great about Braden. He was a self-made biomechanist, but he had really taught tennis. You know, something Jack Roppel, who was spoon-fed by Vic, same time I was, great for the game, great presenter, but he did not have the hours of, you know, he was a professor at Illinois forever. He didn't have the hours of being out there teaching little kids and, as I said, grinding it out in the trenches with beginners.
Would you put Mark Kovacs in the same category in a sense?
I think Mark Kovac's expertise is on recovery.
Okay.
But he's Dr. Serve here in America. I one time was at the PTR and it rained. I was presenting, he was presenting, and Matt Clore did so much of the work with Patrick Gibson. So all of a sudden it rains, so everybody goes to this huge auditorium, and Mark Kovacs is going through the play-by-play on Patrick Gibson's serve. And but I did videos for Patrick when he's a beginner, and he's somebody who could show the GreatBase left-handed, right-handed. So there's the show business of tennis. Okay. I mean, you know, I think with the football coach here in America, Bill Belichick, just do your job. But I think that what happens is most people are selling. They're not teaching. You know, they're trying, you know, that's where at one time the GreatBase, or Tennis Intelligence Supply, there was a fee to it. But we just stopped and said, okay, we're going to give everything for free because, you know, it's just really kind of turns my stomach on how people are just charging, and everybody's got new secrets. But I do think Piatti, I know Lubitschek spent a lot of time with him, and best man at his wedding and whatever. You read all these great things, but I think that high grades for being a relationship coach with, but also too is that, you know, you just have to, people need to understand that there's a different place and a different time. If some kid is 12 years old and, you know, you film them and they get a palm up overhead and they you know, they're not going to play an approach shot, you know, the rest of the year, let alone a volley or an overhead, there's just too much turning to what the pros are doing. You know, say, for example, I was saying earlier today to a dad that I was around ice hockey, born into it, and I went off to hockey school and I worked with figure skaters. My older brothers didn't have that opportunity. But because I had older brothers and my father was an engineer, he also coached, I just knew, okay, it couldn't cross over going backwards one way. The best people to help me with my game initially were figure skaters, because in hockey, if you can't skate, you can't play. Now, all these years later, I mean, they need to make the rinks bigger because everybody can fly. Everybody can skate. That wasn't the case years ago. But tennis, not everybody can volley. Not everybody can serve and volley. You know, not everybody can do it, adapt and play on different surfaces. But people just don't think that they'd have to really study the information to realize you can criticize the pros. You know, it's not like, well, okay, you know, John Isner's one of the nicest guys in tennis. I understand tonight he's playing Ben Shelton. And you would never convince me that for playing doubles, he should have been taught to serve volley as a little kid. Now, I mean, I've talked to people who've coached him in juniors. I know Manny Diaz who coached him in college. He one time was in a room where he had just lost in 3 sets to the Bryan brothers, Sam Querrey. And he was emphatic about saying, if we serve and volley, we wouldn't have gone 3 sets. Well, of course, but if you had started serving volleying when you're 10. So it's not a matter of taking shots at the pros, but just like, well, to speculate, the players of the future. You know, in this country, the most talked about program is the USTA Player Development Program. So much money spent on it. started in 1987. What's been produced? What has been produced? And what needs to happen is to get coaches on the same page, get coaches working together, where, you know, a kid goes on vacation and he takes a tennis lesson in our tennis club, and yeah, you need to have an efficient swing that's high, low, high, inside out, long hitting zone, and I think it's consumer education and then product knowledge. So the consumer doesn't have, consumer education, and then the pro, anything goes. Is there really product knowledge? So in other words, this is a clean service motion, and you go to some club and you look around and go, everybody here can serve, and you don't see all these different serves, and then just one kid comes out of the group because they've got that animalistic hit the ball all day, they've got the intangibles, but even then that kid doesn't know that perhaps the light at the end of the tunnel is a train coming right at him. It's been great to have you on as a guest. Do you have any other questions? GreatBase?
Yeah, I mean, just a few. It's like one quote, and it's like, I mean, it can sound a little negative, but it's also I'll say it anyway. You always talk about the pain of discipline and the pain of regret. And it's like I've heard you saying that you've been saying the wrong things, the right things to the wrong people, and that it sounds a bit like if there is some some kind of I was just wondering about if you feel that you have made throughout your long career, like spacing through all your experiences, mistakes that looking back is like, okay, I wish I did that differently. This would have, I could have done better. I could have ended up in a different place. Something that could help, like, younger coaches, but also parents, but also players. From looking back in your career.
I just tease. Say I've said all the right things to the wrong people. That's for people who don't practice. Like today, I said that, and I said it to a young boy. He's leaving here, and we do a post film, and obviously it's on film. He's hitting the ball better. No one would really argue if they saw the pre and the post. And I said, well, the operation was a success, but the patient may die if he doesn't go home and follow up. But I think with a tennis lesson, it's like a match. No, for sure. I think we're on my side of it. We can be guilty of over-teaching. Also, too, most people are guilty of under-teaching. I rather over-teach than under-teach, but they're both wrong. But it's a lesson's like a match. You have to stop and think how to go. You have to think, okay, how could that lesson have gone better? It wasn't just another lesson, and you have to be your own best critic. I think also too. You just think of what the situation entails. Many times I'm coaching to the lower end of the program because, my brain type, I've been empathetic educator, and I'm gonna gravitate towards working with a beginner. So, it's eventually you have to get to the point where you can just, okay, the kid is 16. He's got these holes in his game, and it's like, okay, we're going to keep telling you these, but we're going to cut you loose, and you just need to play. I mean, there is no perfection. So that's where you can, say, well, okay, how do I do with this one person? Could I have accelerated the process with, pushing the right buttons, to how to win the kid over, how to make the kid hungry, how to motivate the kid. So I just think reflective thought, like, okay, the lesson, how did that go? And you can always get better. I think it's really unfortunate that the people that, they're telling you that they're a great tennis teacher. I mean, come on, you don't have to tell anybody you're a great tennis teacher. There's different levels of competency. But here in the U.S., largest, economy in the world, it's just amazing how many people are selling. Like, I'm the best. It's like, oh, come on. No, well, first of all, no one's the best, but no, for sure. How could that lesson have gone differently? More balls hit. Granted, you could even say, okay, the fun factor. but also too is that, when they left, was there a good beginning, good end? Was there a review? What were the takeaways? So always think of it as a match. People will do that in a match. You go to a USPTA, PTR conferences in this country, and people are really into the tournament. They're really into the tournament. But I do think, and Braden used to say that, if you're really going to be a great tennis teacher, you do come to the crossroads where you don't play anymore because you're more wrapped up in your students' game than your game. But at the same time, I say that where people should be able to continue to play. Like for myself, on the brain type being an ESTJ, I was just wound up where I got to train 4 hours a day. Where the peak and go, yeah, I'll play. And they just, also Jim Larry used to say this, is that you should never stop playing tennis. Just play a set a day. Play a set a day against anybody and everybody. Because if you don't, you lose it. If you don't use skills, you lose skills.
No, totally. But also connecting like to the, in a sense, like the different hats, as you have been an educator of kids, an educator of coaches, like, and, working with the college team back in the day, is like different roles, like different, talking about like joy, like personal joy, and also the impact that you feel that you can make. Sometimes I was having a conversation with what's his name? It's actually a pretty well-known fitness trainer. His name is Ryan Rubens. No, anyway. But what he was talking about is that he felt now that he's working with more with the federation side. It was like, okay, before I was working with the individual player, and I could impact that player. Then I was coaching the coach that would coach 10 players, and then I could zoom in and coach, have a larger impact. So also talking about, like the individual joy and the impact that you feel that you're making, like what gave you the most of these two, and if you think that there is a trade-off between like the personal joy that you can get in working in different roles and the impact that you make.
Well, I do think that's one of the reasons that people teach is it's psychic income. I think if you're teaching, you're not doing it for the money, and it is a life vehicle, and you help people with their life, you help people with their confidence, and that's, people really need to get that message. I think that's where parents, the reason you have your child play tennis is it's an extracurricular activity that's going to allow them to learn so much about themselves. The winning and such is just a bonus. So, no, it's not a matter, well, I want to work with the players that are playing at the highest level. And, to me, it's all the same. It's all the same. If it wasn't, I would have positioned myself where I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I would have positioned myself because I can't do that. The jockocracy, how you talk to a player. I've trained with many tennis teachers that they're just not capable of that. How you talk to an athlete. I think my banter, my time in hockey helped me out with that. But no, I don't. It doesn't matter to me whether it's the local yokel tournament or a big college, big junior, even pro event. It's all the way to Wimbledon. It's and we've had many people get to the point where they're playing at the Grand Slams. And then, you have to ask yourself, we are going to interview Austin Krajicek in a couple weeks, and he's just in the French Open final. Maybe it's just pure ego on my part, but, well, if he didn't change his game, didn't totally overhaul his game when he was 7, 8 years old, and we have it all on film, he can serve and volley. And how many serve and volleyers are there in America right now? How many people can play world-class doubles? And so that psychic income is that, yeah, I think I helped that kid out, or what comes down to like colleges, I tell parents, and I've worked with so many people because I'm also a supplemental coach. Students send me students. So, and I've been doing it for 48 years. So usually I'm 10 for 10. I said, name 10 colleges. And of course, they're going to name the very elite schools and what have you, and from the Power 5 conferences. And yeah, I'm usually 10 for 10, where I can tell you, okay, I taught so-and-so who played there. I taught so-and-so who coached there. But really in the end, we have a treasure chest of information. And, I've just done some homework over the years, and that's what it is. It's not a matter of what we haven't discovered anything. There's no secret sauce with us. This is it. And you said it earlier. It should be mandatory. It should be, in reprint. People need to read Braden's book. They haven't. Certainly the USTA in this country could have taken the book and said, okay, let's present it in a little different way. But it's not going to change. The laws of physics are not going to change, and the argument on to change your grip or not change your grip on the volley, that's where it comes back to tennis math. It takes the same amount of time to change your grip or not change your grip. And if you look at the very best players, they don't say what they do or do what they say. So that's just goes on and on where, say what happened? And the rhyme or reason is just like, there's too much craziness.
Yeah, but listening to this is like, it kind of answers also the other question about, if you have in recent years, like, change your mind about something that could be technical, tactical, but adapted. Also about physical training, mental performance, character building, and I heard it. I think it was about Welby Van Horn, like that. Looking at Roger, like playing, he changed his mind. Not that he changed his mind. He realized that we were not teaching it the most efficient way. It's like if there is any aha moment that you had in recent years about.
Yeah, just to recap that, Welby. I spent time with them in the nursing home. Actually, we are going to get around to interviewing Ed Weiss. It's been approved by Ed Weiss, who wrote the book on Welby, and Stuart, Welby's son, to have his book for free on our website. But Welby used to tell kids, this is the beginner grip on the forehand, this is a championship grip. And because it was wooden rackets, it was on grass, and people were aspiring to play Wimbledon, and that was back when people were wearing spikes. And, of course, Roger didn't have a composite grip on the forehand side. And, no, I think that with, you should always stop and think and say, well, how can we get kids to play approach volleys? How can we get kids to do X, Y, and Z? I think more creative teaching. Okay, we should have done this. The governing body of tennis in this country, around the world, we're going to play one bounce doubles. We tell people everybody played one bounce doubles. So, no, I don't think by any means there's all the answers, but at the same time, it's not going to drastically change. Look at, Hank Jungle, who had a big influence on Tim Gullickson first, Tom Gullickson second, the supermarket of tennis. Backhand volley, Edberg. Okay, we're going with Edberg. The one-handed backhand, Wawrinka. And then you think Federer is so great on both those shots, but he would tell you, I couldn't volley like Edberg on that side. And also that if I had a wish, that was something he said, I wish I had Wawrinka's backhand. So, but if you look at it, it's all fundamentally sound. It's all, and it sounds like we're promoting like Patrick Mouratoglou, is that it's all GreatBase. Now we're going to change the name of it every other year now to Solid Fundamentals, but Yannick Noah, Richard Krajicek on the serve, with just out of the book, those guys, how they hit a serve. It's just biomechanically sound. And you would think that, now Stan Frankert, he studied Braden. He had a lot to do with Richard Krajicek. But so how much of a connection was there, I don't know. But I do remember spending time with Stan Frankert, where I'm at the Vic Braden Tennis College, and I'm assigned to Stan. And, he was in charge of the Dutch Tennis Federation at one time. But like those two guys on the serve, doesn't mean that they had lessons from Braden. But, one thing with a great base, there's not going to be an unorthodox player. There's not going to be a Monica Seles. So that I think that's the question mark you have to make when you meet someone, and also really knowing the kid. We've had a couple kids come this summer that they've already been recognized by the USTA, and then they've been, maybe one or two of them been dropped by the USTA, but okay, we're just going to help them a little bit. I think I could be critical and say, yeah, we tried to help people too much, because their game is too far gone, and you have to work within their game. It's hard for me to do that. Say, oh, but I can do that. Where I've done that for years in tennis teaching conferences. If someone comes out and say, okay, tell us what you want to work on, and I learned that from Braden. Is I can be in front of a group of people, and some kid can come out and I can get him to hit the ball better in 5 minutes, because it's diagnostic. I understand the flaw, the cause, the cure. But that doesn't mean that, okay, it's a magic wand and they're hitting the ball better. You just say, okay, this is what you got to do. But then, I think it's a matter of the chemistry, the relationship. It's not just, okay, here are the X's and O's, the nuts and bolts, but how can we get this kid connected where they are going to, the process, they're going to follow the pathway.
No. I mean, I just have two short questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
From the kids, but you can tell me if you.
No, we're good.
No, but
these are marathons. These podcasts are for people on an international flight.
No, Hilvi was asking if why is tenacity your favorite word?
Well, my mother used to tell me I was tenacious. The absolute certainty that what you want to transpire is going to transpire. Actually, I'm pretty foolish thinking, okay, I'm going to be able to help tennis teaching. It's like we're a drop in the ocean. But no, tenacious. There's 15 schools in the United States. There were 16, I believe, that are the Bulldogs. They got that tenacious look. And one of the California schools, they dropped in the Bulldogs, had a vote, and now they're the Banana Slugs. But no, you've got to be tenacious. You just never give up. And I think that's something that's, it's just based on society that kids give up before they start. Kids aren't working part-time jobs, and kids don't have to do household chores, and the parenting's gone down levels.
Yeah, for sure. And Anton actually was asking, as you can see, we need to work on his mental toughness a bit. But he was asking, what's your favorite drill or exercise, so that he can work on, becoming more mentally tough?
I think he should film himself playing. Should film himself in everything he does. And then he needs to be a student of body language. He's got to change his body language. Yeah. Jim Lair, what can you physically change? Well, one, you can smile. One, you can say good morning. And, it takes 14 muscles to smile and 72 to frown. Take the air in through your lungs. I mean, be happy you're on this side of the ground than the other side of the ground. So he just needs to know how bad his body language is. He's low negative. And, that's where name calling, I like to stay away from that, but say, well, I'm not going to let the nickname stick, but are you a faucet or are you a drain? And a faucet, energy makes energy. Like, this guy's positive. We're all going to be negative. Like, come on, let it out, release it. But a drain is like, we don't need the low negative. No time. And that's where tennis kids are not playing a team sport. He was asked by Fergus, the Irish coach who's visiting here, have you ever played a team sport? And, that's where tennis kids are not really learning to play for something bigger than themselves. And, and also, too, you think of the club. I'm going to guess that he's one of the better players at the club, so his environment, I would try to create, okay, we have this, girl who's younger than you coming, and she's going to wax you. She's going to beat you. And not to make anybody feel bad, but you have to know where point A is to get point B. Jim Lair, tennis players never arrive. They're always in transit to a better place. But right now, the way he's conducting himself, he's not in transit to a better place. He's going to get stuck in the mud. But that's just one issue where he gets low negative. But then you think of the people who, the scoreboard just regulates their day. You know, if they won, everything's fine, and everybody around them's gonna be okay. Then if they lose, everybody around them has to be miserable. You know, parents are amazing like that. Is that they like, well, my kid lost, and they let their kid act like a total prima donna. It's really bad. But I would say be a student of body language.
For sure. And the you know, last one from me about you know, the community, the GreatBase community. Also, when you're talking about like creating the environment, you know, like Denmark is small, but we are not far from Germany. We are not far from, you know, Finland and Norway and Sweden and even France. You know, it's like it's fairly close. So it's about how can we connect and understand when you say that not all coaches like follow like the information like you know, by the letter, but I'm sure that there is like thousands of coaches that have been either trained or that have been influenced by, you know, by the GreatBase like information. Vic Braden, Welby Van Arn, like, you know, Dennis Van der Meer, all these guys, I'm sure they had an impact. So it was like I would just love like to see, you know, in an ideal world, opening Google Maps and typing like GreatBase, you know, and having on the map like coming out all the red dots, you know, across Europe, across the United States. Okay, these are the clubs, these are the coaches that I can, you know, send an email to and say, can I bring my kids to you and, you know, have them hit some balls with your kids? And, you know, in Germany the level of play is so much higher than in Denmark just because they have more players, you know, and it's like, can, you know, create a club friendship, you know, can we make a connection that you know, that it's not that far away. So it's like, just how can we help, you know, forming that community, you know, making a forum, Facebook groups, like a list on the website of coaches that you guys recommend, certify. No, I don't know, but it's just if
yeah, a few things. I mean, that's great input. That's what needs to be done. We do have ghost followers, meaning people are not giving credit to us for where they learn the information. They're just being pretentious. And, you know, we understand the self-promotion. People have to take care of their own ballywick. They have to make sure they have lessons and such. But I think also, too, that, you know, there has to be validation. Just because someone says, okay, I've studied GreatBase, that doesn't mean they really study GreatBase. Actually, the people who have done the best with player development are the people who come to see us on a regular basis. You know, it's not like, well, I've trained a lot of people who've just gone to a weekend workshop. But they circulate, they're around it. And because that's just the way it works. You know, have to work your craft. But then politically, at one time in Berlin, for 3 summers in a row, I was training coaches. And then the people who controlled the indoor courts were told the 4th summer, if he comes again to train coaches, we're not renting any courts from you. And the Federation rented quite a few indoor courts from them. So it's really, really interesting where, you know, what would the Danish Tennis Federation say? Here in the U.S., I mean, you know, the spirit of the entrepreneur, I mean, if you want to do it, you just do it. But I do think in some places that you would find the governing bodies to be restrictive. No, you can't do that. You know, have to go through the chain of command. I do think that it should be done. You know, you're a young guy, your energy level, you certainly could help us with this. I think that, you know, I think of like, say, a Mark Hamlin in Germany, with, Andy Fitzell's there now. I mean, I can name probably 10 people that I've trained that are still in Germany. You know, some of them got away from developmental tennis. You know, their job is they run a club, and it's just, most of their kids come once a week, and it's hit and giggle, and they're appreciative of what they learned from us. And years ago, we weren't just in the lane of forehands and backhands. We're teaching people how to, you know, be a programmer, be an event manager, you know, all the different hats that you have to wear. But I do think getting people connected online. But what you're saying, Lorenzo, it needs to be done. It needs to be done. So that's where right now, you know, we're treading water a little bit. waiting for this status to be approved. Now, that doesn't mean that, like say someone living in Denmark, that if the GreatBase becomes a nonprofit, it really, that's just Americans that can donate to monies to that, to make that work. And we're just going to, I'm going to continue just to do what I do and not make my money from the nonprofit. I think that's another thing. Most nonprofits, I think, are crooked. But we're going to just continue to try to give out free information and have the monies that we raise. It'd be great to hire, like, say, 1-2 people that are just experts in the social media side of things. And, your input would be great. I think that, certainly when I get my angel wings, it needs to keep on going. That's how strong it is. I mean, it's like 8 years later after Braden passed away, for the Tennis Channel to put out that piece is that, hopefully they can, like, wow, this was all, people listen to our podcast on Giddy and Ariel in the 70s. It was like, come on, just what he had to say was just mind-boggling. It was so good. But no, there needs to be collective efforts. And right now, we wouldn't want to have it be where someone is just going to, put a patch on their sleeve and say, well, I'm GreatBase. And they really have to, there needs to be a way where they're proving that they've logged hours. Very few people, I get myself in trouble, but very few people have actually completed Tennis Intelligence Applied. It doesn't have much of a plot. My mother would say it's pretty boring. It's not that interesting a story. And it's the same thing with a reading list. I get myself in trouble with most tennis teachers. I got asked the other day by a dedicated parent who has a dedicated son what books to read. I think anything by Braden, anything by Lair. And there's all sorts of books to read. But when it just comes down to the nuts and bolts, is, okay, we're going to get a ready position. We are going to have a unit turn. The racket's going to go below the ball, and the racket's going to go away from the target. The ball's going to rotate with true topspin. How are we going to do that? And you're right on where that needs to be done. Peter Burwacher just passed away. For years, he had an atlas. You go to his website. It was a map of the world, and you would see, as you said, the red dots on where he had people teaching. But he was really in the service business. He wasn't so much in the education business. I don't want to belittle that, but and sometimes tennis teaching, if someone doesn't want a lesson, it's a disservice. But could we just agree? I've said this 1,000 times. Can we just agree that the tennis court's a rectangle? Can we agree that water runs downhill, not uphill? Can we get on the same page? So if 2 adults, they disagree, well, that's fine. But what about C? So 2 pros working at the same club. And, what about, it's the third party? What about the child you're working with? So, no, you're right on. We can talk more about that. That's what we hope to do.
No, but if I can help, if I can help and, we can connect and create, like, this kind of community.
Yeah, no, it's a must. I do think that the GreatBase, it comes from Richard Hernandez, who was a guest, and he said tennis needs a GreatBase initiative. And I said, say that again. Tennis needs a GreatBase initiative. And then what we were doing at this 2-year college in the 80s, working with our 8 pillars, and there's all sorts of success stories with the GreatBase. And there's a history lesson to it. And granted, we can add to it, like you were asking. We can make improvements to it, but the core is there. People need core knowledge. Again, all you have to do is watch people hit a ball, and it's like you've spent a lot of time with Berto. You just watch as a kid play, and you'll say no information. He had no information. You see how they're playing, and and also that kid can play pretty well in the early stages because they're in a primal stage. They're just free. They're not thinking about anything, and they're just fighting. You're trying to teach a kid to be able to play a one-handed underspin backhand approach shot cross court based on the short ball range and all the different positives of hitting an underspin backhand. That you just see kids, they're not even playing shots like that, but they're free. They're just ripping balls. But no, you're right on, and that's where it'd be great to connect further. And you need to have somebody with your passion help us out. Obviously, you'd have more skills in that area than I would. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to, I can return emails. But no, it's great. Yeah. Great to have you on as a guest.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this week's. I mean, and it's been incredible, really. I mean, it's it's you expect something, and then you get just so much more. I mean, it's.
Oh, thanks. I do think that's important, that people should try to exceed expectations, and it's not, coming back to what you asked. It's never just another tennis lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this kid's 1 hour. Or it's a group coming out for practice. And when the practice ends, did they hit every shot? Did they get better? It's not a matter of just counting how many people are out there and how much money you're making. And it's, to be a teacher is a privilege. And I think we have to honor that.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Thank you.
Lorenzo, thank you. Lorenzo. Say that last name one more time.
Panariti.
Isn't that beautiful? My name's pretty boring, Steve Smith. But anyway, thank you very much. We have to keep going forward, but I really appreciate you being here, bringing your students. It's been great. Thanks. Adios, amigos. Podcast number 103 in the books.